Hello, low-key confused listeners. We've been doing a series on happiness where we talk to people with different training, different disciplinary expertise about the nuances of happiness. Today, we are joined by Dr. David Donnelly, who teaches for American Studies and Philosophy to help us understand happiness and particularly the role that friendship plays in happiness. Thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, happy to be here.
So let's start generally. What role does friendship play in happiness?
Yeah, it's an excellent place to start. I think especially most people approach happiness thinking about it as a very individual or solo project. What makes me happy? Well, about friendship is that it makes you realize it's not a solo project. It's a very deeply social project. And so for me, the way I focus on friendship is of the relationships I think are most suitable to what our goals are when we're seeking out happiness. Friendship plays that best role. Nothing against family. It's just that friendship is the most democratic form of relationship that you can have. Right? You get to choose them. They choose you.
Mm-hmm.
You can end it when things are not reciprocal. Family, a bit more, complicated. You don't have the choice there. Ideally, they contribute, to your happiness. But if they don't, it's not so easy just to go, I don't want anything to do with you. Whereas friends, no, that's there. If you're contributing to my misery, you're bringing me down, then I don't necessarily want to be friends with you. And often what draws people together is similar sources of joy. So that's why I think to think about friendship is that probably was too much emphasis on just how I'm supposed to do this alone.
Yeah.
And that can be challenging and demotivating. I liken it to if you say, I want to get healthy and I'm going to go to the gym. And there's going to be a certain amount of motivation there. But we know that if you have a gym buddy, if you have a friend who's counting on you to be there, now we're more, even the days where like, I don't know if I really want to work out today.
Yeah.
But I can't let my friend down.
Yeah.
And then you're happy you went, right? The endorphins get going. So it's sort of like that, where things that we need to do in order to develop our capacity for joy and happiness, those are going to be easier if we have friends to support us along the way.
Let's dig into some of the differences here, right? What are the different types of friends and the roles that friends play?
So a philosopher that talks for an extended length on friendship, Aristotle, he talks about there being at least three kinds of friendship. He doesn't use these labels, but folks who study his work on friendship have adopted them. One kind of friendship is a mutual pleasure sort of friendship. And for him, what defines the kinds of friendships is what is it that attracts the friends, that bonds them together. So I liken this to sports where you could watch sports at home, and again, there's a certain amount of joy to take in that. Or you can go to a sports bar where people are there, they're all cheering, hopefully for the same team, as you. And that's a much more pleasurable, enjoyable experience to have. But oftentimes, those friendships, they necessarily leave that domain, right? It's just that brings you together. Maybe when the season's over, maybe it's a different sport that starts up and you continue it, but you don't necessarily share intimate details about your life. And it's nothing against the other person. It's just that's not what's bringing you, together. For him too, sort of, if this isn't reciprocated, right? Maybe our friend they drink too much, they become belligerent, and you're like, this isn't as fun to watch the game. You're going to go hang out, with other folks. And hopefully it's not taken as, it doesn't blow up into something, bigger, because it's just, that was what brought us together. Another kind of friendship is mutual advantage. So when I'm teaching this, I bring up, the concept of a study buddy. Right? You're in the same classes. It's to your advantage to split up the study guide. You do the first half, I do the second half. We meet up, we help each other. And if we do well on the test, it's like, all right, let's do that for the next test. And maybe it's somebody that's in your major, and you go, I'm doing well in classes, with this person's support, and same is true for them. What classes are you taking next semester? And maybe we'll enroll in the same. But maybe when the semester ends, again, too, or just outside of classes, you kind of go your separate ways. It's not that you're not interested in each other beyond that. It's just that's kind of how some of these things, unfold. Maybe something more grows out of it, but it doesn't have to be.
Mm-hmm.
And then when you graduate, you wish each other the best and you go your separate ways.
Mm-hmm.
The third kind of friendship for him is a character friendship. So it's based off of, that person's character. They're drawn to the other person for their character, their good moral qualities. Aristotle thinks, in terms of happiness, this is what we're really, interested in. I think when we say best friends, that's closer to what we mean.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just this person provides us pleasure. It's not just that there's advantages. It's who they are, as a person. I mean, one way to think about it is like with the sports bar. I go to a different sports bar, still have the same, pleasure. I could find somebody else, in the class that we help each other to study well. So in some ways, those things they're a bit more interchangeable. But say whoever's your best friend, even if you try to list all the qualities they have, and I find somebody else who's got all of those qualities, you're probably going to go, that's not quite it.
Right.
I can't fully communicate, what it is about them. Yes, it's those qualities, but it's more than the sum of that. That's the sort of thing that I think is occurring at the level of character friendship. These people are not replaceable in the same kind of way. We lose a part of ourselves if that relationship falls apart.
Yeah.
We don't so easily disentangle. Something bad's got to happen, or we have to become a different person. Our character changes, and then we go, okay. And it's always a sadness. It's tragic that there's a separation there.
Yeah.
So these friends, they get to know you. They know your vulnerabilities. And they care about the projects you're invested in. They want you to succeed at them. You want the same, for them. So there's this reciprocated well-wishing. There's an intimacy, a trust that develops. Granted, in Aristotle's time, this was more manageable to, ideally, you would live near each other or together for, good parts of your life. That's probably harder now to facilitate, but we have the phone, we have ways to keep in contact, daily. But he thinks those are the friends that, in terms of our ability to be happy, that they're going to contribute most towards.
Yeah. No, it's interesting. There have been news stories recently about the pain of friend breakups.
Yeah.
So that seems that would be the losing a friend that's in that character category. And just how soul crushing that can be to folks to lose somebody like that.
Yeah, it's hard, especially part of the reciprocated well-wishing is, say, like there's some opportunity that takes them the other side of the country. And it's like, how important this opportunity is to them. You wish them well, but then, that part of you're not together, that's painful. Ideally, you meet, but maybe they move back or something else brings you, together in close proximity. If not, you try to maintain as much as you can. But one sign that in those situations I know of, and it's happened to me personally too, is when you do see them again, it's like you pick up exactly where you left off.
Yeah, there is this element of friendships that you forged in childhood. I think in particular where it becomes interesting, even as your life goes on, you reunite with this friend and it's like no time has passed. It's like a time collapser.
Yeah, then there's this issue too of those other friendships, pleasure, mutual advantage, those can be formed, throughout one's life. Aristotle doesn't quite say this, but he does have a developmental view about humans. So that you got to start off on the right foot. But I think one thing we can add to that is, those are harder to develop later in life because you need all that time together for the intimacy to develop and the trust to develop. And it is the having nothing to do as a kid, the boredom of, and then, how you resolve that, whatever it is, you get into.
Yeah.
Not as much of that when you're older, right? It's just, every moment is, I got this to do, that to do. So not that it's impossible for them to develop, but they're less likely to develop.
Does Aristotle say anything else about friendship that we should know about?
I think in terms of thinking about, there's lots he does. It's one of the longest discussions, and then it carries over into politics, where he talks about this like civic kind of friendship. But that's different than character. and the project there is different than achieving a state of flourishing. But so yeah, those are the main things. I think the other thing to add too is that the feedback that you get from a friend that's critical, because they love you, they trust you. You're going to take that a lot more seriously. Whereas it's from a stranger or just someone who's a coworker, you might be suspicious, like they're really trying to help me, or they're just tearing me down. And he thinks we need that kind of feedback. So this is long before the heuristics and biases, literature. But yeah, we're prone to self-deception.
Yes.
We're prone to either an overly harsh view of ourselves or an overly favorable view. And so to have somebody who knows you, knows your tendencies, and it's like, I know you think you're doing this or you're coming off like this, but this is what I see. And then you can trust that's coming from a good place.
Yeah.
They mean well, they want what's best for you.
That's interesting. Another news article I read recently said that, because I do think I think that there's been discussion about loneliness, a lot of discussion about loneliness, and about that people don't have enough friends, don't have enough deep friendship. And one of the articles I read suggested that the deep friendship problem is coming from people not being entirely honest with their would-be friends in the beginning, and then they get comfortable and then they're honest about something and then it all blows up. So I think this is an important point about honesty in friendship.
And also with kids, it doesn't dawn on you to want to do image management with your friends. But when you're older, you become a lot more preoccupied with that. And so how do you break that ice? Yeah, I could see that being a difficulty. Relatedly too, I watched this TED Talk from a researcher. She studies things at the intersection of technology and sexuality. And the opening of her talk is 70% of American teenagers have formed a relationship with an AI companion. 50% are interacting with it daily. Yeah. And so she brought up it's not just romantic relationships being formed, but it's also friendships being formed.
Yeah.
And I wonder if some of that for those that are older that are doing this is in part this too. You don't have to worry about image management as much, because you're not going to get the harsh feedback. It's programmed to tell you what you want, to hear.
Yes. Yes, I did. I read one article and it did talk about this gender aspect where a female student felt so liberated by talking to an AI chatbot, because she's like, I realized I spend my entire life worrying about hurting people's feelings. And all of a sudden, here I have an interlocutor and I don't have to worry about that. And it was freeing.
Yeah. On one hand, it's that. One thing she points out, we should be careful how we go about this, because it also intimacy without sacrifice, right? It will give and give. You don't have to give back, right? You can just take. And especially for those that are younger, that's not a healthy way to start modeling, the friendships. But for others that are older and they've gone through this, as long as they, know that, don't get too attached in this kinds of ways. But yeah, I think if it can be helpful to work through some of those anxieties, and then hopefully you just meet, the right folks. That's the thing too about, character friendships. You can go up to a class with somebody and say, hey, do you want to study with me? Or, hey, do you want to watch the game together? And outside of little kids, we don't go, do you want to be my best friend?
Right.
And in some ways, it's not even a choice. It's more of, you just keep showing up in each other's life. And then you eventually, you realize over time that that's what you are. And so how to meet the right people where that anxiety, someone does something disarming, for you, so you don't have that as much. And then you realize, okay, I can. And maybe that's a gateway too, to realize, there's other people like this. I don't have to, be as, anxious or worried, about these negative reactions that I'm going to get. And so, yeah, with your best friend, again, too, with family, sometimes you can't always be yourself, because there's this hierarchy, involved, and, you need to appease your parents and grandparents and such. But usually with best friends, that pressure is what, dissipates. You get to be your full, self, and you don't have to worry about, what do they really think of me? And you can have your bad moments and know that they're going through a tough time. they're not usually like this.
Mm-hmm.
That's harder to do in other relationships.
Yeah. You know, on Monday, we're having a sociologist come to campus on April 23rd, Allison Pugh. And one of the things she's going to talk about is the importance of friction in friendship. And it's reminding me of some of this. So let's dig a little deeper about like, why is mutuality important in friendship? Why might honesty and a little bit of pushback be important in friendship?
Honestly, definitely, if you're worried that people are just saying things to, appease you,
Mm-hmm.
or if you sort of think, that the opposite's happening, that people are sort of, after you, uh, knowing that no, they keep showing up through the good, and bad moments. I think that's the value of friendship, especially, that kind of close friendship.
Mm-hmm.
I think with other folks is, if we're not taking the time to get to know them on that deep level, then comes the mutuality. It's got to be this pattern, this history of that, so you can trust that that's the case.
Mm-hmm.
In the beginning, I get sort of, people will be squeamish. And for me, it's hard now at this point to remember of the folks that I would call my character friends.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I'm sure there's some initial discomfort.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, in my group, there's 7 of us that I would call us all character friends.
Mm.
And there's one of them that we don't even remember how we met.
Oh.
This person, how, and I imagine at that point too, sort of, who is this, individual? And I imagine there was a little bit of suspicion, because others sort of, no, it was explicit, sort of what brought us together. But this person just sort of showed up in our friend group, and maybe because we felt embarrassed, we didn't, say, anything, and they just kept showing up. But then there's established this pattern of mutuality of, they've done things for me, I've done things for them, I can count on them. And so even just small things like, planning for a party, and they bring the stuff they promised to bring, or even just, showing up. Right? Ghosting is this other phenomenon, I think, that makes it harder for people to want to trust, other individuals. So once there is that happens, back and forth, there's no set time, but eventually, the guards, come down. And then you can disclose, the intimate details. And there's probably moments too where, actually this happened, over the summer in my friend group. One of our friends, someone who, I could tell it was a lot of courage, but it was great that he trusted us. Admitted that he's now in this polyamorous, relationship, both him and his wife. And especially for them, coming from a very conservative background, this is a hard thing, for them to admit. And it was just great. I saw all my friends, and just, everybody was immediately supportive. Even if we don't understand it fully, we just go, if both of you are happy, then we're happy, for you. If it's working well with the kids, then, we're happy for you. And so, but that's like after 15 years of friendship, that this person felt, okay, I can do this. So there's no way to speed this up. And sadly, some people may betray your trust. And I know it's going to make it more difficult to want to put yourself out there. But yeah, there's plenty of us who go, no, there's good folks out there, that are not going to do that.
Let's talk a little bit about kind of the intersection between friendship and politics. I think that this is another place of the news reporting, this idea that it's less and less likely to become friends with somebody who doesn't agree with you politically. And now with like the algorithms of digital friendship making, right? Like you're more inclined to only make friends who...
in your echo chamber.
Yes, the echo chamber. Any thoughts on this topic?
I think one thing that was a different talk I was at, the person said, at this point, we are more likely to change our religion than we are our political affiliation, which just then speaks to the depth of the divide, there. And another thing that person brought up, but wasn't thinking necessarily about friendship, but that because of the algorithms, because of our information about the other echo chambers is filtered through that, what we're being shown is the most extreme version of that political view.
Mm-hmm.
And in the absence of more nuanced evidence, it's easy just to go, they're all like that.
Right.
And on the other side, they're picking someone from, say your side who's, the most extreme version, for which you may go, yeah, I agree with some of that, not all of that, or I don't agree with the way they're presenting that. That's kind of, that sort of alienates other folks. Doesn't matter. That all gets lost too. And it's just, you are conflated, with them.
Mm-hmm.
So amidst that dynamic, I think, something like friendship, but it can't first be about politics, because then we're already going to be polarized.
Mm-hmm.
But if what brings us together is other things, intimacy grows. Of course, we're going to have to deal with, that political divide. When it goes wrong with trying to talk this out with other strangers, is how do you trust that this is a good faith conversation?
Right.
And that's not an aha, I got you, moment. If you establish common ground and other things, and then you shift into this terrain slowly but surely over time, I think that the person's going to be more likely to hear you out, and then know that your position is not coming from wanting to demonize or put them down or score points on them.
Right.
There's that aspect too. As a side note of politics that I don't like is it resembles the Super Bowl now. More. My team has to win, that team has to lose.
Mm-hmm.
Probably not the healthiest approach for democracy.
Right.
A pluralistic one too, like ours. So a friendship or a guy that's taken on this terrain, Daryl Davis. He's trained as a musician, a jazz musician, and at some point, I think it's in the early '80s, that he gets invited to play at this bar, and he pretty quickly realizes like this is a meetup for KKK members. So talk about just opposite politics of him,
Mm-hmm.
and that becomes the common ground: music.
Mm.
And he doesn't bring up politics explicitly. This sort of obviously, there's no avoiding it. And at some point, that topic gets approached. He's never broken down, at least in the book that he wrote, the sort of mechanics of how each of these things goes. But over time, friendships form, they blossom. He gets invited to KKK rallies, very strange sort of thing to see.
Mm-hmm.
And folks, they treat him well. And what is this guy doing here? But he claims that after years of friendship, and just getting to know him, and then realizing the flaws in their beliefs about all Black people,
right,
that starts to crumble. And it's because he is dependable. He is there. He comes in their time of need, and so he ends up sort of humanizing Black folks in general for these folks, and. I don't know what number he's up to. He has a collection of Klan robes, but when folks quit the Klan, he asks as a souvenir to keep, their robe.
Mm-hmm.
But he always is consistent about it. It is forming these friendships,
right.
with them, and sort of just from who he is as a person is counter evidence to what they think, is true.
Yeah.
And so in the book about him, his dad sort of admits that this is work. Daryl is special. He didn't grow up here in the United States. His dad is, if I remember right, is a diplomat, and so he grew up abroad in this very multicultural, at least more so than the United States, because he's going to school with all the children of the other diplomats from other countries. And he still has, it was a traumatizing memory the first time he experienced racism in the American, context.
Yeah.
Because he didn't grow up with it thinking of it as a normal thing. So he approaches this all with a level of curiosity that I think is only possible because of those experiences, because he has the comparison point. Mm-hmm. So it's not for everybody. He doesn't advocate it, for everybody.
Right.
He's just trying to show this is a method. Mm-hmm. He's been at it now for, almost 40 years. And, it's worked for him.
Yeah.
So to me, I look at that and go, okay, if a Black jazz musician and the leader of the Klan, in Maryland, if those folks can become friends and the tensions can lessen, I guess I'm more optimistic about me and whoever disagrees, with my politics. Because to me, it just shows what's possible,
right?
Because that should be a case where we go, that should seem impossible.
Yeah.
Uh,
But it's interesting. So it seems in that story, the friendship had to come first, as you said.
yeah.
Like they didn't go. Their first conversations were not about politics. They first established conversations about something they agreed upon, music.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and debating trivia about music.
Yeah.
And so no, that song was actually first written by, and so that too is sort of okay. We're passionate about this.
Yeah.
Of course, he slides in there too that a lot of the music they like is actually originally written by black folks. So that's his way of sort of kind of pushing this on them. There's another case I've looked at where it was explicitly political. What sort of brought these folks together. There's a book called The Best of Enemies. It's also been made into a film more recently. And it's about in 1972 or in early 70s, Charlotte, North Carolina had to finally integrate the schools. Yes, Brown versus Board had happened a number of years before, but it took all of these cases in individual districts, like force the issue. So the city council did not want to decide this. They all knew no matter what they decided, no one was winning re-election.
Right.
So in a sort of bad faith move that ended up working, they said, well, let's let the people decide. So we'll form this committee with different stakeholders in Charlotte, North Carolina, and let them decide. And so that involved bringing in leadership from the Klan, leadership from the various factions of the civil rights movement. And these are folks that had had bitter battles publicly beforehand. Now they have to work together. And so for C.P. Ellis, he's the main guy who represented the Klan. Over the course of just a few weeks, his whole perspective ends up shifting. And a lot of it was the guy who facilitated it. He really structured things in a way where they quickly broke the ice. They got to the core of what it is that animates their disagreements. And for this, it humanized for everybody. So the folks in the civil rights movement who understandably, hated him, tensions, end up lessening. And in particular with one woman, Ann Atwater, they become friends. And what the common thing that established that friendship was they were talking about their kids and what they wanted for them for their future. And things started to click that, wait, underneath all of the hateful rhetoric that we've been spewing at each other, a lot of it's just this anxiety about, I want my kids to succeed in the world. And I see the way this is going with the schools as a threat to that. How do we put up front, that, them succeeding? That's what matters to us.
Yeah.
And that gave them something to work with.
Yeah. So kind of the importance of structure, again, the importance of finding a commonality.
Yeah.
And, add to that, having a common task, like actually seeing you can work with somebody else and they're not just like, a demon.
If I can, show you here, I brought it up. So this is them in the 70s.
Oh.
And then 30.
Do you want to show the? Is that possible? Yeah.
I'll send you the image. Yeah.
Yeah.
This is them in the 90s, and look at their hands.
Oh.
And to think that these people, bitter rivalry.
Right.
They just sought to destroy each other in public. And then when he passes away, she's the only black person who's at his funeral. But his family members knew, like, no, that's that's one of his best friends.
Yeah.
And so he ended up going on. Well, here's the thing too, sort of why friendships are important. CPLS ends up leaving the Klan. CPLS ends up leaving the Klan, and he essentially loses his entire social network. Even his wife leaves him, takes the kids, and he's just left disoriented. What do I do, with my life? And he goes through this period of depression, which is understandable because everything he's known is just, slid out from under him. But it is friendships like hers and a few others he made. He comes out of it. He eventually becomes a union organizer, organizing integrated, unions.
Yeah.
And he does that until, the end of it, until he retires.
Yeah.
So that too, sort of, friendships can inaugurate these transformations and then help to sustain them for folks. So again, to me, this is at the extreme end, which is why I think to have more hope for I I think especially based on literature, where this polarization is because we're associating the most extreme beliefs with other people.
Mm-hmm.
If you get to talk, if you talk to folks, at least when I've traveled in this country too, politics has never come up, and quickly we're able to find common ground.
Mm-hmm.
And I think building on that, and then eventually going to it, wading into politics once we know there's intimacy and trust. I think it's going to shift the dynamic. I'm not saying it's the magic bullet or
Right.
cure all to any of it, but given we just are going in the opposite direction, we're like, I don't want to talk to that person. I don't want to be
Mm-hmm.
around that person. I don't want to live in the state with that person.
Mm-hmm.
We got to de-escalate from, I think, that ledge, and friendship can be a way to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
So you, just to talk a
yeah.
little bit about you as a scholar, um, you got your PhD in philosophy, right?
Yes.
And you wrote about friendship
Yes, and political disagreement.
and
These
political
are
disagreement.
two of the big examples that I focus on.
Mm-hmm.
For the same reason I just said, if it's possible at this level, I think we should be optimistic
Mm-hmm.
about what we can do.
So another low-key confused we're doing is with a psychologist who studies happiness, and so she talks about like what's the method that psychologists use. What do you like? How do you study friendship as a philosopher?
So you look at you survey literature. What have other folks said about friendship? And there's not a whole lot of them that have talked about it.
Mm-hmm.
So I mainly focused on Aristotle, and there was a more recent book called On Friendship by philosopher Alexander Nehamas, which he just runs with that account. The one thing he loosens is that these have to be good moral qualities. He approaches the idea of thick as thieves, that like it can be really bad projects actually that bring people together, but it's got the intimacy, it's got the love, it's got the well wishing, albeit
Yeah.
do bad things. And he focuses a lot more too on that aspect I brought up of how the person's irreplaceable.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I start with. In terms of thinking about happiness, that is what Aristotle is largely interested in. At least the word he uses gets translated over to happiness in the Nicomachean Ethics. Uh, I take issue with that translation because I think what most of us have in mind about happiness is not the same thing that he's talking about. As in, if we imagine it as this momentary, fleeting state. But in context, a video I watched yesterday, someone's like, when was what was the last purchase that made you happy? So that's this is momentary sort of thing.
Right.
Aristotle doesn't think that if we step back for a moment, that's truly what we're interested in. It's just how do we achieve this, pantheon of little, moments. That what we want is something that's enduring, and that sort of state isn't, and it can be really disappointing when it goes away. For the Epicureans, this is something they focus on. That we spend all this time grasping for things we don't have. Once we get them, we're worried that we'll lose them. This spoils, our happiness, in that moment. And I think someone like Aristotle understands, that's not really the way people want to be, living their lives. So I get why they've chosen that word. For some folks, the literal meaning of the term eudaimonia, don't quote me the pronunciation, folks, pronounce that term differently, is to be possessed by the spirit of happiness. So daimon is the word for spirit. The way I like it when I teach it is, so we've kept that word daimon, but we took out the A, and Christians shortened it to demon. The way demon possession works, where like it transforms everything about the person in an enduring way, right? If you don't do the exorcism, this is just how they're going to be. My interpretation is imagine that was a state of flourishing that took possession of you, and such like this is now your enduring state. So there will be joyful moments, but you're always looking to grow and to develop. Everything is enhancing the quality of your life, even if it doesn't seem so at the moment.
Right.
Even if there's challenges and obstacles. So it's going to be an overall sort of state of flourishing, one with a lot of joy, in it, and persisting through those difficult, challenging moments. But it becomes your background state, your mood, your motive of moving through the world. This has to be cultivated slowly over time through healthy habits and supporting friends. So that there's both the individual project of, yeah, how do I cultivate habits conducive to my flourishing, excellences. So that word gets translated to English as virtues. And that's what he means it as. That word has Christianized meaning too, not exactly what he's, going for. So how do I slowly but surely develop a set of habits such that I don't have to keep thinking through, every action that I take, because I have these healthy habits to lean on. That's what, he's going for. And I think, there's probably a lot of us who, if we find ourselves chasing those moments and then experiencing that anxiety over losing the moment, or just feeling disappointed that, like the new car, it's really great. A couple months later, that was a lot of money to spend, just for that really brief time. So, how do we get off of that hamster wheel?
Yeah.
And it does mean, doing the hard work, which is, again, too, he goes, this is, in the Comic and Ethics, this is the importance of developing these in childhood. Is that then it becomes easier, as an adult.
Yeah. Such an interesting point, because I think, again, there have been news stories about like, oh, you should spend money on events that makes you more happy for exactly this reason, this view of happiness, of what can spark joy, and what will, and the argument is, yeah, exactly, like, how can you keep on sparking joy over and over again? So I think that that's such an important point about these different views of happiness, and happiness as a sustained sequence of good habits. I really like that. And it also makes me think, as you were talking about, the Declaration of Independence, right? And how it says that it is, oh, why am I blanking? In the pursuit of happiness.
There's not a parallel structure there, right?
Yeah.
So that lets you, because why not just say life, liberty, and
liberty. Oh, yes, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, right? But I think, early American historians argue about what is the definition of happiness there, and I think that they conclude that it isn't this kind of like what we consider like happy, joy, right? Like that it's much like you are describing it. What are the structures that we need, the freedoms we need to allow us to pursue largely lives of virtue?
Well, and there's also the idea too that it's not guaranteed in the way that we might be able to guarantee, liberty, within the political structure.
Right.
It's like, we'll give you the chance to, to pursue it, but it's this, finicky thing. So there's still some residues there of, you could grasp it, but it might just, be elusive. I think that sort of, in as much as, there's lots of money to be made off of, people having that disposition. But, are we, does it ultimately serve us, at the end of the day? There's a book called The Top 5 Regrets of the Dying. And it's written by a nurse who worked in a palliative care facility. So everybody who's there, I think in the facility she was at, it was something like just a couple of months left to live. Sadly, folks bring up what they regret about their life, and what a really horrifically tragic situation to be in, to know you only got so much time left, and this is how you're feeling.
Right.
And so one of the regrets on the top 5 is, I wish I spent more time with friends. I wish I'd worked less. But the number one is, if I remember correctly, it's the effect of, I wish I had lived a life true to myself and not the life that others have wanted me to live. And to me, that's a way of saying I regret my whole life, right? I wasted it. I didn't really do what I thought mattered, most. And for some of us, I think there's this inkling that, buying these things or just doing, these one-off things to get that moment, I'm left, longing for something more. I don't know how to describe it. And for me, that's one of the benefits of studying philosophy and history and all of it, is you get a wider vocabulary to express the ideas you already have, in you. You just don't know how to put it into words. And then you read it and you're like, that.
Yes.
This is what I've been missing. And so, I understand that. I have this distinct memory as a kid. Actually, my parents see this. It'll be the first time they hear this one. I remember having all my toys, and I knew how much they had, sacrificed to pay for them, because they had a small business and I would go to work with them. So I saw the 12-hour days. And the truth is that the toys did not make me happy. And I felt bad about it. I thought I had done something, something's wrong with me, that I don't take joy, in these things. And then, I encounter someone like Aristotle, and I go, no, there's nothing wrong with me. It's just, this is not where it's to be found.
Yeah.
Like, these are nice things. And I did, there was joy in the moment, pulling them out of the box and all of that. But yeah, it wasn't lasting. And the solution was not more toys, which again, it's an all too easy thing, to, fall in the trap of. And so it's like, okay, how do I do this hard work of, cultivating this? And for Aristotle, it's in this larger project of how do we live up to our potential? And that's what I take too from that top regret is I didn't live up to my potential, which is one of the most, worst things to realize, towards the end. So then to go, okay, for those of us that are, not there in such a facility, and yes, there's the time spent, but with the time that's left, how can we focus more intentionally, on this? By the way, Socrates might have, phrased this is, you spent all this time on your appearance today. How much time did you spend on your character, today? All right, we're obsessing over things that, not that they're unimportant, but are they really the most important thing if we look inwardly?
Yeah. Yeah. We recorded with one of your colleagues, Professor Bridges, about Henry David Thoreau. And you and I had started talking about this too, this question of why might one go into an isolation in order to find happiness. And, one of the things he pointed out to us is that, like, Walden Pond is actually kind of like pretty close to town. He wasn't necessarily eschewing all social interaction. And though he did feel like he had to really deliberately figure out what is the meaning of life and how to live life, right? Like, so I'm reminded of what you're saying about the importance of careful reflection on developing your character and deciding how to live deliberately.
Yeah, right. That's Thoreau's phrase. I think one other thing to put next to that, his book, The Maine Woods, he talks about this hike he does to the Mount of Katahdin, I think is how you pronounce it. And here he has this revelation. He feels this spiritual transformation happening, within him. I think for a lot of folks that follow in this tradition of I'm going to leave society, a lot of them, that's what they want. They want that moment of spiritual clarity, that something is revealed to them that's different than what the dominant culture has, shown them. And at least in American, culture, there's a long history, of this. Thoreau's definitely, one of the central figures. But you get even someone like Jack Kerouac, his book Desolation Angels, same thing too. I think that's the one where he does a fire watch for the summer. Whichever novel it is that he does that, that's what he wants.
What's a fire watch? What does that mean?
Oh, so before you had helicopters and satellites to monitor forests, you had these watchtowers that sat above the tree line, and people would get paid to live there all summer, essentially during fire season.
Yeah.
I think there's like a handful left. And I've thought of, it would be a great way to spend the summer is to go to one of these last places. But yeah, up until that technology, this was common. And so sometimes you go to national parks, you can see the ruins of the towers that are there. So he takes that job knowing, all right, I'm going to have 3-4 solid months of solitude here. And he wants this moment to come, and it doesn't come because that's revelations it happens from the outside, to you. And so that's the thing too. You don't get that at Walden necessarily because it's, he's intentionally doing this. It's not, it has to be sort of happenstance, that it occurs. There's an intention for it to occur, but you're not trying to manifest it explicitly. It's going to happen at the moment you least, expect it. But this draws off of religious traditions of, Moses goes up, into the mountains too for 40 days.
Yes.
And there too, he has this revelation. God reveals to him the 10, commandments. And so it's grafting off of that there's something about society that is, at least, it's lacking in purity. It may be morally bankrupt. So you want this purification of your soul, and the only way to get that is to leave behind the corrupt society. And maybe you come back as a changed person, or you just don't. You continue on in that sort of existence. So more recently, a story that was popularized, one of Chris McCandless in the novel and film Into the Wild. And he's read Thoreau. He wants this sort of experience too. It's not clear whether he has it. A lot is made by John Krakauer of this annotation in one of his books, that happiness is only real when shared. And it's like, as anyone who reads, there's a couple things that could be happening here. One is, it is the aha moment, and so I'm writing it in the margin. Or you're going, I think this is the main point the author is making. Right. I'm going to note that. And so since he, sadly passes away, he's not here to tell us. But for me, if you want to go with Krakauer's interpretation, then yeah, what he's missing is friends. Yeah. And what's interesting in that journey is all these folks want to be his friend, and they want that deep, they want that intimate friendship with him. They like him for his good qualities, but he's on this, solo journey. So he pushes them all away. But it's clear that, he made a huge impression on them. Because when they're interviewed years later by Krakauer, they vividly recall, all of this. So yeah, there, in as much as that is, happening, I guess it's helpful. But if there's no one to share that with, then it becomes a solo project, and then you can find yourself sort of on the outside looking in. So that's one wonders, if Chris had lived, what would he have done? Would he have come back into society? So in philosophy too, I mean, this view too, that society is corrupt and you should look to move away from it, that's been there, from not so much the start. I think for Plato, Socrates was somebody who tried to stay in society and transform it, and they put him on trial and kill him. And I think this understandably traumatizes him. And he just goes, nope, I'm not interested, in that project. So he builds his school on the outside of that society. But the goal was to train future leaders. It was to transform society. He just thought during his time, it was too corrupt. This wasn't going to happen. And if you don't have the right environmental conditions, everyone who grows up in it will grow up under this normalized sense of corruption. Right. So let me provide the pure place on the outside of society. Stoics, they also thought you could transform things from the inside. You get Marcus Aurelius, he's emperor, but he even realizes how limited he is in doing this. And then you have the cynics, who they also are like, no, forget, that's all, there's nothing to salvage there. So they just poke fun at it from the outside. They don't want anything to do with it. So we see those range of opinions. And I think, that's filtered into religious views of, similar things too. And then you get these folks who, some of whom are religiously inspired, not everyone is. But there is this idea that, if I'm going to find true happiness, if I'm going to find my authentic self, which is the other issue too, of they don't like that they're a socially constructed being. They want this sort of, when you strip all that away, who am I, really? In as much as that question makes sense, I'm the wrong person to ask that one too, because I'm more focused on how we are socially constructed, and I think that is where meaning, comes in. And I'm not sure what is there when you strip all of that away.
But what I see as a place to tie it up, though, is I think the true character friendship and all the great attributes that come with friendship really are most possible when two people come pretty sure of who they are, comfortable sharing who they are. So it's after the people come down from those two people come down from the mountain, they're the ones who are best poised to maybe be friends.
Oh yeah, you get a sense of what you really want. See, it's probably, I'm glad you pointed that out, because when I think of my friends, we actually are all introverted. So we have spent a lot of time alone, reflecting, sometimes hiking alone. My version of this is every night I go walking, by myself, and most folks are inside, and that's good enough for me. I don't need, to get a second house somewhere or something like that. But then, you're sure of who you are, and if you're always doing something, you're always busy. You might not, that might not occur, and it might not be clear to you, sort of, what do I have to offer? But again, too, I mean, this you both can say, we want to meditate,
Mm-hmm.
alone, and then afterwards, what came up, what arose for us.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I wish those folks, there was more folks in that tradition who emphasized that view of, I just need some time alone to figure things out, but I
Mm-hmm.
want to come back. But we've really glorified the individuals as individuals who just go on these
Yeah.
very solo, projects.
Yeah.
So this is one good thing about, there's that criticism of Thoreau, but no, every day he was seeing other people,
Right.
and every day, yeah, he was retreating to the solitude, but it was a balanced, life that he was, living there.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, thank you so
Yeah.
much for helping us understand friendship and happiness and these philosophical traditions. For students who want to learn more from you, what do you regularly teach?
I'm doing science in modern America with the American Studies Department. Not so much on friendship, but some of these other things that are related. We touch upon. But for philosophy courses, ancient Greek philosophy,
Mm-hmm.
that's where you're going to learn a lot more of this. And they do have a class called Meaning, Purpose, and the Good Life, which is when I
Mm,
used to teach that. That's where this stuff always came up regularly.
yeah.
Um, but yeah, those are if these are topics you're interested in from those perspectives, I recommend taking them.
Yeah. Wonderful.
Yeah,
Thank you
thanks for
so
having me.
much. Of course.